management, conservation, and protection of countries' fisheries and aquatic resources. It was established on February 1, 2001 as a primary research arm of the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources and an attached agency of the Department of Agriculture, and became part of the Department of Science and Technology. The overall governance of the Institute shall be vested in the governing board, which shall formulate policy guidelines for its operation. The composition of the governing board shall be as follows: Undersecretary for Fisheries as Chairman, the 4 Director as Vice Chairman, and 7 members which compose of the NFRDI Executive Director, PICARD Executive Director, representative from the academe, and 4 representatives from the private sector who shall come from the municipal fisher folk, commercial fishing operator, aquaculture operator, and post-harvest or processor. Researches to be done by the NFRDI are expected to result in the following: to raise the income of the fisher folk and to elevate the Philippines among the top 5 in the world ranking in fish productions, to make the country's fishing industry in the high seas competitive, to conduct social research on fisher folk families for a better understanding of their conditions and needs, and to coordinate with fishery schools, LGUs, and private sectors regarding the maximum utilization of available technology, including the transfer of such technology to the industry, particularly the fisher folk. As a national institute, the NFRDI shall have the following functions: establish a national infrastructure unit, complete with technologically advanced features and modern scientific equipment, which shall facilitate, monitor, and implement various research needs and activities of the fishery sector. Provide a venue for intensive training and development of human resources in the field of fisheries, a repository of all fisheries researches and scientific information. Provide intensive training and development of human resources in the field of fisheries for the maximum utilization of available technology. Hasten the realization of the economic potential of the fishery sector by maximizing developmental research efforts in accordance with the requirements of the National Fisheries Conservation and Development Programs. Also possibly through collaborative effort with international institutions. And formally establish, strengthen, and expand the network of fisheries researching communities through effective communication linkages nationwide. NFRDI researches are being aligned with the Comprehensive National Fisheries Industry Development Plan, a medium-term development plan which is an offshoot of the Republic Act 8550, which covers programs in aquaculture, capture, post-harvest and marketing, and trainings. Aquaculture includes fisheries biotechnology, feeds and nutrition, aquatic animal health, and farming systems and engineering. Capture includes ecological and economic studies on stocks and the impact of fishing methods and gears in coastal and inland ecosystem, including distant waters. Post-harvest and marketing include fish handling and processing, product development, seafood safety and quality, and trade of fish products. Also conduct and develop training and development programs in the field of fisheries for the Institute's internal and external stakeholders. To further implement the conduct of researches, the NFRDI established its national centers. Freshwater Fisheries Research and Development Center, located in Botong, Taal, Batangas. The center conducts researches, development, and extension services in freshwater fisheries. The center serves as the main repository of researches in Taal Lake and is involved in the conservation efforts of the lake and its resources. Marine Fisheries Research and Development Center, located in Giwan, Eastern Samar. The center conducts researches, development, and extension services in marine water fisheries. They undertake socioeconomic studies and livelihood and income diversification program and applied research and development projects in coordination with the academe and other research institutions. Brackish Fisheries Research and Development Center, located in Lara, Lanao del Norte. The center conducts researches, development and extension services in brackish water fisheries, develop ground technology appropriate for brackish water species, and improvement of quality seed supply and broodstock. To know more about the NFRDI, please do visit our official website at nfrdi.da.gov.ph or follow us through our social media accounts at NFRDI Philippines. Thank you, and God bless us all.
Good day to our esteemed participants. Before we start, here are some video conferencing etiquette that needs to be observed during the meeting. First, be on time. Make sure to be in the virtual room 5 minutes before the set time and ensure that your devices and technology works perfectly. Second, mute yourself when not speaking. This is to eliminate unnecessary background noises that may interrupt the meeting. Third, find a private space or spot with minimal to no distraction so you can devote your whole attention to the matter being discussed. Fourth, if you do have headphones, kindly use them to ensure audio clarity. Lastly, chat responsibly. If you do have any questions or concerns regarding the presentation, please feel free to type them down on the chat box. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to greet all of us here a happy Fish Conservation Week. We are having today's webinar in observance of this yearly event to promote the importance of fish and other aquatic products to the people's well-being and the country's economy. For everyone's information, our participants today are coming from all over the Philippines. So, meron po tayong representative from Luz Vimin. Meron pong mga taga Lanao del Norte, Bohol, Cebu, Palawan, Cagayan at iba pa. Muli, magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. This webinar is brought to you by the Philippine Journal of Fisheries, published by the National Fisheries Research and Development Institute under the Department of Agriculture. I am Cyrene Moncawe, Managing Editor of TPJF, and I will be one of your moderators for today. So to start this online gathering, let us put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. Here with us today is National Fisheries Research and Development Institute's Acting Executive Director, Dr. Lilian C. Garcia, CESO 5, to welcome us. Ma'am Lilian.
Okay, hello to everybody.
Good morning,
How are you?
Good afternoon po.
Hello. Good afternoon. Yung iba siguro, good morning. Kasi I have seen na malayo na pala ang naaabot. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. Tapos kanina, tinignan ko yung profile.
Yes,
Meron
ma'am.
from Turkey.
Turkey, yes,
Sa
ma'am.
yeah,
Wow.
wow.
Tatlo, ma'am. Nakita ko tatlo
So,
from
are
Kastamonu.
they foreigners?
Yes.
Foreign students or Filipino students
Ma'am, I
na
think
nag-study sa
mixture,
Turkey?
ma'am. Ma'am, mixture siguro po. May Filipino and merong foreign. Oo.
Yes, apo.
So I think we should speak full English. It would be a nosebleed seminar. Well, anyway, moving on, I would like to greet everybody. Of course, I could not forget to greet our scientist, Dr. Muji, the head of our training division,
Thank you,
and
ma'am.
our yes, and our distinguished and well-abled, competent resource speakers for today, Ma'am Lisa Cambia and Dr. Yuli Montojo from our post-harvest division, and to CJ also, the one who is facilitating this activity, and of course to everybody na hindi ko I failed to mention your names. I would like to greet you a happy good day. I do not know if it's in your country, it's night or evening or whatsoever. But whatever is that, it's irrelevant. What matters most is you are here with us. And thank you. Also, for those participants who are from different colleges and universities in the Philippines, I saw their names also. As far as Isabela, I think
Yes,
there are
ma'am.
those from Marawi City. So
Wow.
I think this activity is part of our dream in NFRDI to reach out our stakeholders, the students, the FISA folks, and everybody who is interested in fisheries. Now today, I would like to announce to everyone that this is not the first time. I think we have one or two. Am I correct?
Yes,
One or two online activity na before. And for today, I will be discussing the results of the studies of our researchers and scientists from NFRDI, namely the levels of heavy metals in 6 aquaculture commodities collected from various landing sites of
Yes,
Manila Bay, the famous and one of the hottest
Yes.
usapin is nowadays the Manila Bay because of the dolomite.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
another is the Ciguatera in the Philippines, examining reef fish vectors and its causative benthic dinoflagellates in Visayan and Sibuyan seas. So I think we all know that food safety is very important. Makakalimutan natin rather ang sarap ng pagkain kapag hindi siya safe. So first and foremost, ang pagkain, ang first question, is it safe for consumption and whatsoever. So I will not intend to lengthen my short message, but this is one I would like to assure everybody that in the coming days there will be more. So please be with us and continue to support NFRDI. Please like our page and also invite your friends to like our page.
Yes.
Okay ba yan? Okay, so we believe that despite the pandemic, the operations of the R&D in the Philippines it will continue. Okay ba? So with that, I thank you very much. God bless you all. And I myself, makikinig ako. I will be with you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Doc,
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye-bye. Sige,
Thank you,
bye-bye.
ma'am.
Yes. Thank you very much,
thank you.
AED, for sparing us some of your time. Ayan. And to give us now the rationale, here is Dr. Mujikiwi Santos, Scientist 2 of NFRDI and Academician of the National Academy of Science and Technology, or NAST. So here is a fun fact. A fish is named after him, Chalidoperca santosi, with an official common name of Pogi perchlet. Doc Muji.
Thank you very much, Sai. Hello, everyone. Kaway-kaway naman dyan. For our guests who are overseas, kaway means hi. You wave your hand.
Yes,
So,
hi.
hello po. Hello. Good afternoon. And we're really very happy to see all of you. And of course, we're really very happy sharing this results and information with you guys. Gaya nga po ng nasabi ni Ma'am Lilian, uh, this is NFRDI's way on how we will be able to make research publications more relevant by mainstreaming this one and explaining this to the public. So ito pong TPJF webinar series, because of that, was started. Actually, it was a brainchild also of Ma'am Lilian. Sabi niya, Muji, baka pwede nating gawing webinar yung mga publications sa webinar. And so, and this webinar series was born. Okay? So as I mentioned, we feature papers that are published in the Philippine Journal of Fisheries. Okay? So our speakers are the authors of the papers, and they will explain in length and in detail yung research question nila, yung methods na ginawa nila to answer the research question, and of course, the results and the discussion that they did to answer that question. Okay? And so, yun nga, today will be a very important topic, seafood safety. Sabi ko nga dun sa post ko, it really, really matters. Now, just a quick background po, the Philippine Journal of Fisheries, no? Actually, nag-start po siya noong 1950s, no po? Nag-publish dito even famous people like Dr. Ken Carpenter and even national scientist Angel Alcala published in this paper. And then in about 4 years ago, NFRDI was able to revive it. And so here we are. We are now currently publishing around 15 to 18 papers per year. We have 2 issues per year. Okay. And marami na pong publication, mga submissions, not only from NFRDI, but also from the SUCs and other organizations. We are already indexed na po sa ASEAN Citation Index, sa UN Food and Agriculture ASFA, sa De La Salle, Andrew Gonzalez Philippine Citation Index. And we do have already, or we are already accredited under the DOI Crossref, and we are indexed also in the Aquatic Commons. And naka-apply na rin po tayo sa Scopus and sa ISI. So we're waiting for that one. So siguro yun na lang po. I just would like to invite everyone, of course, to send your papers dito sa the Philippine Journal of Fisheries. Mababait po kami dito. Lalo na yung ating managing editor si Sai. Lagi yung nakatutok sa mga submissions ninyo para i-facilitate. And of course, keep watching, and also sana samahan nyo kami palagi whenever we do have the TPJF webinar series. Sabi nga ni Ma'am, tuloy-tuloy po ito. So with that, magandang hapon, good afternoon, and hello po sa inyong lahat.
Ayan,
Sai,
thank
over
you
to you.
very much, Doc Muji. Okay, alam ko po, excited na tayo na makilala ang ating mga speakers, no? So ngayon, let me introduce them to you. So our first speaker for today is Flor de Lisa D. Cambia. She is designated as the officer in charge of the Seafood Quality and Safety Section of the Fisheries Post-Harvest Research and Development Division of NFRDI. She is also the quality manager of the Integrated Research Laboratory. Her research interests are quality indexes and contaminants in foods like biogenic amines, histamine, heavy metals, and other toxic chemical and environmental contaminants. She is currently the study leader of 2 projects, namely accreditation of the National Integrated Research Laboratory towards ISO 17025 and detection of methyl mercury in selected commercial traded species. She will tell us more about their full paper published in TPJF entitled Levels of Heavy Metals in Six Aquaculture Commodities Collected from Various Landing Sites of Manila Bay, Relationships with Size and Seasonal Variation. And our second speaker is Dr. Ulysses Montojo. He received his PhD in the field of fisheries science from Kitazato University in Japan. He is currently serving as officer in charge of the Fisheries Post-Harvest Research and Development Division of NFRDI. He also serves as the chairperson of the Codex Subcommittee on Fish and Fishery Products, or SCFFP. His primary interests include hazardous contaminants in fish and fishery products and fish handling. He is currently the study leader of the projects Assessment of Fisheries Post-Harvest Losses and Assessment of Hazardous Chemicals and Other Pollution Indicators in Aquaculture Farms surrounding Manila Bay. He will share with us the results of their research study entitled Ciguatera in the Philippines, examining reef fish vectors and its causative benthic dinoflagellates in Visayan and Sibuyan seas. So now I will hand over to Ma'am Liza to start our first discussion. Ma'am Lisa.
Hello. Hello, hello. Hello, Sai.
Hi ma'am. Yes ma'am,
Ay,
rinig ko po
naririnig niyo
namin.
na ako?
Yes
Oo.
ma'am.
May technical difficulties kasi eh.
Sige po. Nakikita din
Sorry
namin ma'am
ha.
yung screen po ninyo. Okay lang
Okay.
ma'am.
So,
Yes po.
pwede na mag-start.
Yes ma'am.
Thank you very much, Sai, for a very brief and nice introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. And today, I will be presenting to you the title of our research entitled Levels of Heavy Metals in Six Aquaculture Commodities Collected from Various Landing Sites of Manila Bay, Relationships with Size and Seasonal Variation. This paper was published by the Philippine Journal of Fisheries, issued for the month of January to June 2019, Volume 26, Number 1. And the research was conducted last January 2016 to April 2017. My co-author in this study were Ms. Kathleen Clea Benitez, Carl Brian Perilonia, and Dr. Ulysses Montojo. This study was under the banner program of the Seafood Quality and Safety Program of the Fisheries Post-Harvest Research and Development Division, funded by the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources through the Manila Bay Cleanup, Rehabilitation, and Restoration Project. As we all know, seafood is an important source of food for hundreds of millions of people around the world because these are high in protein and rich in essential amino acids. It's also rich in macro and micronutrient elements such as calcium, phosphorus, fluorine, and iodine. It also rich in polyunsaturated fatty acid and liposoluble vitamins. In 2008, it was reported that about 81% or equivalent to 115 million tons of estimated world fish production was used as a human food with an average per capita of 17 kilograms. Despite of their nutritive value, consumption of these seafoods brings many times a potential hazard concern to human consumers. These can normally accumulate heavy metals from food, water, and sediments. Essential metals like iron, zinc, copper, manganese play an important role in biological systems, whereas other metals such as mercury, lead, and cadmium are non-essential, and they are categorized as heavy metal that are toxic even in trace amounts Mhm. These metals enter the aquatic environment mainly by anthropogenic sources. In general, the study aims to determine the levels of heavy metals in 6 aquaculture species collected from the various landing sites of Manila Bay. And for the specific objective of the study, uh, following are the objectives. We have number one, to compare the levels of heavy metals in 6 aquaculture commodities with the regulatory limit set by the BFAR Administrative Order 210 Series of 2001 and EC 1881-2006. Second is to correlate the fish size and the heavy metals concentration. And lastly, to compare the seasonal variation of heavy metals in 6 commodities per landing sites. In 2001, the PMC, or the Partnership in Environmental Management for the Seas of East Asia, reported that in the Philippines, fisheries and aquaculture are among the primary sources of livelihood around the Manila Bay. According to the Philippine Statistic Authority, in the year 2017, the aquaculture contributes 41% of the total value of the fish production, among other fish. Enclosing the bay are aquaculture structures that proliferate mainly along Bataan, Bulacan, and Pampanga in Region 3, Cavite in Region 4A, and in northern Metro Manila coastlines. And from this figure, you can see the map of the pre-identified 11 landing sites surrounding the Manila Bay where we collected the samples. This includes the following. From Region 4A, the Sinigualasan landing site, which is located in Bacoor, Cavite, and then the Orani Peace landing sites, which is located in the northern part of Bataan. And from the National Capital Region, we have Market 3 of the Botas and Tanyong Malabon Peace landing areas. On the eastern side of Bulacan are the Paliwas, Obando, and Panasahan, Malolos, Bulacan fish ports. On the western side of land of the Bulacan is the San Sebastian, Hagonoy fish port. And from Pampanga landing sites, we have connected from Santo Niño, Masantol, Santa Lucia, Sasmoan, Caduang Tete, Macabebe, and Santo Niño, Huagua, Pampanga. These pictures show the top most popular cultural species which we collected from the pre-identified landing sites and sampled during the dry and wet seasons. That is from between the March 2016 and September 2016, respectively. The collection of samples varied depending on the availability of the species in the landing sites. And this includes the following. For the fin fishes, we have Chanus chanus, which is commonly called as milkfish, and then Oreochromis niloticus, which is commonly called as tilapia. And then for the crustaceans, we have Cecilia serrata, commonly known as crab, Peneus spp for the shrimp. And for the bivalves, we have the Pernaberidis, popularly known as green mussel, and Chrysostea iridale, which is the oyster. The samples collected was brought in the NFRDI laboratory, and they are logged and cleaned, while the standard length and weight were measured, and it is followed by dissection and homogenization. For the heavy metal analysis, the edible part, which is the fish muscle of the milkfish of the tilapia and shrimp, were used. For the analysis of mud crab, the oyster and green mussel, the mussel and the viscera were utilized in the study. The homogenized samples were put in resealable polyethylene bags with proper labeled and stored at approximately -80 degrees before the analysis. For mercury analysis, the homogenized samples were done in triplicates, and these were digested with concentrated nitric acid under pressure in a closed vessel heated by a microwave digester. For lead and cadmium analysis, samples were digested in the same condition, except that the addition of hydrogen peroxide was performed. The digested samples were diluted with 0.1 molar of nitric acid solution. For the sample analysis, the reference method used by the laboratory in the analysis of total mercury, lead, and cadmium are based on the modified AOAC method, which is numbered 99.1 for the lead, cadmium, zinc, and copper, and iron in foods, atomic absorption, spectrophotometry after microwave digestion, and the modified AOAC official method, number 971.21, for mercury in food, a flameless atomic spectrophotometric method. Prior to the routine analysis, method validation was carried out to ensure the accuracy and reliability of the analytical results. The laboratory also performed quality assurance and quality control, uh, performing the recovery of the spike samples, meet standards, method blank, and the reagent blank for every each analysis in order to guarantee reliability and accuracy of the results. For the statistical analysis, the data analysis was done by means of SPSS version 20. For the values obtained in the that is below the limit of detection, it is considered as ND or not detected, and were not used in the statistical analysis. The t-test was used to check the significance difference between the dry and the wet seasons. The pure correlation test was used for this significant difference between the heavy metal concentration and the individual lengths and weight of the fisheries resources studied. The level of significance was set at a probability lower than 0.05. For the results of the study, in this table, this shows the regulatory applied or allowable concentration of heavy metals in fish and fishery resources as set by the BFAR and the EU, where we base the results of the analysis conducted. For the lead, mercury, and cadmium, the limits applied is 0.5 ppm or milligram per kilogram for all the fishery resources, whereas EU regulations, fishes are categorized according to their families. For fin fishes, the regulatory limits apply are 0.3 ppm for lead, 0.5 ppm for mercury, and 0.05 ppm for cadmium. For the crustaceans like crabs and shrimps, the regulatory limits applied is 0.5 ppm for all the heavy metals. For the bivalve mollusks like the oysters and mussels, the regulatory limits are 1.5 ppm, 0.5 ppm, and 1 ppm for lead, mercury, and cadmium, respectively. This table shows the concentrations of the aquaculture commodities from Manila Bay landing sites during the dry and wet seasons in relation to the allowable limit set by the BFAR and the EU. All of the 6 aquaculture commodities analyzed are within the regulatory limits set for lead and cadmium by the BFAR and the EU, except for the tilapia and the shrimp, exceeding the 0.5 ppm allowable limit for mercury. As I have said a while ago, all 6 aquaculture commodities are within the regulatory limits set for lead and cadmium following the regulatory limits set by the BFAR and the EU. And from the sample analyzed, 2.0% of the tilapia or the Roqueus niloticus collected from Hagonoy, Bulacan and the Botas City are exceeding the 0.5 ppm for the mercury. And also, 5% of the shrimp samples collected from Guagua, Pampanga and Obando, Bulacan also exceeded the allowable limit for mercury. This table, table 3, shows the probability values of the seasonal comparison of the heavy metals for a landing site. The dashed lines represents no statistical analysis made because the results are ND or below the limit of detection. Statistical analysis showed that only the milkfish samples collected in Hagonoy, Bulacan significantly varies the concentration of lead between two seasons. For tilapia samples collected in Obando, crabs from Orani, Bataan, and then shrimp from ayaw. Ayaw. Ayaw na mag-ano. Ha? Dito, yung makita. Ayun, paki-ano. Sorry, paki-ano. Teka. Sorry, ha. For the tilapia samples collected in Ubando, Bulacan, the crabs from Orani, Bataan, and then the shrimps from obtained from Sasmuan, Pampanga, Ubando, Bulacan, Tanyong, Malabon City, and the green mussels from Ubando, Bulacan, Tanyong, Malabon City, and Bacoor City are significantly different in terms of the cadmium concentrations between the two seasons. Only the green mussel samples collected from Bacoor, Cavite vary significantly in mercury levels between the wet and dry seasons. Oyster samples, there is no significant difference found on the heavy metal concentrations between the two seasons. In this study, significantly higher levels of most heavy metals were observed during this season. Lower percentage of heavy metals contamination were compared with the study of Rania et al. In 2016 that on similar aquaculture commodities collected from aquaculture ponds. The higher concentration of the lead were observed during the wet seasons. The reason for this are most likely due to the urban storm water discharge during wet weather flows, which may be a major contributor to the pollution of many receiving water. The other reason is that an agricultural runoff may also one of the non-point sources of pollution that affects the water quality, as the surrounding inland area of the Manila Bay Area is predominantly agriculture, and many manufacturing industries are also found in industrial parks, both in coastal and non-coastal areas of the bay. Urban and agricultural runoffs can significantly affect the quality of the surrounding water bodies and biota. The length and the weight of each species were correlated to its heavy metal concentration using the Peer correlation coefficient as presented in this table. The statistical results show that significant negative relationships were observed between the size and the cadmium concentration in the green mussels, and also with the weight and cadmium concentration in oyster. Also, the same relationship was observed between the length and the cadmium concentration of the milkfish. Negative correlation were also found between the lead concentration and the size of the shrimps and the green mussels. Also exhibited a negative correlation between the lead concentration in the oyster as well as in the size of the milkfish. Negative correlation were also observed between the cadmium concentration of the milkfish and so as with the size of the tilapia. Again, negative correlations were found between the mercury concentration and the length of tilapia, and so as with the size of the mud crab. Significant positive correlation were found in the levels of cadmium and the weight of the shrimp. Also exhibited positive correlations between the mercury concentration and the size of the green mussels, between the lead concentration and the length of the tilapia and mud crab. A positive correlation were also observed between the length and the cadmium concentration on the shrimp, and also between the size and the mercury concentration of the shrimp. Also found a positive correlations between the mercury and lead in terms of the weight of the tilapia, and also positive correlations between the weight and the lead concentration of the mud crab. The results shows that, except in few cases, the relationships between metal concentration and the species were negative. It means that the size of the fish, as the size of the fish increases, the concentration of the heavy metals decreases. To summarize, all samples collected and analyzed for lead and cadmium are within the regulatory limits set by the BFAR and the EU. 2.0% of the tilapia collected from Hagonoy, Bulacan, and Nabotas, and 5% of the shrimp samples collected from Guagua, Pampanga, and Obando, Bulacan exceeded the allowable mercury concentration of 0.5 ppm. Most of the negative correlations were found between the size and the cadmium and lead concentrations. The significant positive correlation was observed between the size and the mercury and cadmium concentrations, while significant negative correlation was found between the size and the lead concentrations. Wet season was observed to have a significantly higher concentration of heavy metals due to urban and agricultural runoffs, which are usually discharged with little or no treatment. As observed, Bulacan recorded to be the most of the highest heavy metal accumulation due to rapid urbanization and industrialization of the said province. For the conclusion and recommendation, the results obtained from this study indicate that heavy metals concentration varies among aquaculture commodities, landing sites, and season of catch. Site-specific metabolic rates connected with the growth may contribute significantly to this variation. Runoffs, which have little or no treatment, may also contribute to the higher accumulation of heavy metals during the wet season. Lastly, our recommendation is that there must be a need for risk assessment and regular monitoring for the said aquaculture commodities. And that's end up my presentation, and thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Liza, for that very informative presentation. And just to quickly mention our website and SNS accounts, you may visit our website at www.nfrdi.da.gov.ph/tpjf to know more about the journal, especially its guide for authors, for those who are interested in submitting their manuscripts. Also, please like our Facebook page. Just search the Philippine Journal of Fisheries. And we also have our Twitter account. So follow us at TPJF_NFRDI. And I would also like to ask everyone to fill out a short evaluation form at the end of this webinar. So ipopost ko po yung link sa ating chat box. And isisend ko rin po sa inyong email address. And for those who want to get a certificate of participation, just reply to our email invitation with your full name and affiliation. Or you can send to journal.nfrdi@gmail.com. So now, let us proceed to our second topic, which will be discussed by Doc Yuli. Doc Yuli?
Okay, good afternoon. From heavy metals, let us hear now about Ciguatera. In support to the compliance of the Department of Agriculture on Republic Act 10611 or Food Safety Act of 2013, the NFRDI has initiated study on Ciguatera under its Seafood Safety and Quality Program. In the Philippines, next to paralytic shellfish poisoning or toxic red tide, Ciguatera is the second primary concern among aquatic biotoxins in the country because it affects food trade. The topics, however, is understudied and underreported. Ciguatera fish poisoning is a type of poisoning primarily caused by the ingestion of reef fishes contaminated with neurotoxins called ciguatoxins. Ciguatoxins are heat-stable polyether compounds, making it a food safety concern. Cooking the contaminated fish will not eliminate the toxin. The main organism that produces this type of toxins is a dinoflagellate belonging to genus Gambierdiscus, which colonizes on a variety of coral macroalgae commonly found in tropical and temperate waters between 35 degrees south to 35 degrees north of the globe. Co-inhabiting with the said dinoflagellates are Porocentrum species and Ostreopsis species. Pacific ciguatoxin is known to be the most toxic ciguatoxin congener. In the Pacific, Ciguatera has long been recognized as a widely distributed phenomenon affecting many of the island nations. There are nearly 40,000 reported Ciguatera fish poisoning cases from 17 countries and territories in the Pacific Islands, with an average annual occurrence of about 1 per 500 individuals from 1998 to 2008. The Philippines, being an archipelagic country and part of the biologically diverse Pacific Coral Triangle, is rich in marine resources that include corals, reef fishes, and algae, making it more vulnerable to Ciguatera fish poisoning. The country's susceptibility is heightened by the continuous sustenance of Filipinos on fish as a major protein source. In the Philippines, more than 100 Ciguatera fish poisoning and Ciguatera fish poisoning-like cases have been documented from 1988 to 2014. The earliest case recorded was in Basilan in 1988 in Mindanao, implicating 19 patients from 4 families. In Sibuyan Island, Romblon, 32 cases were suspected as Ciguatera fish poisoning from September 1997 to January 1998. In June 2010, Ciguatera fish poisoning was reported in Iloilo, wherein 22 patients from 2 families were implicated after consuming red snapper, Lucianus campechanus. The most recent case was reported in Zamboanga City in Mindanao last 2014, wherein 14 patients experienced shortness in breath, dizziness, and vomiting after eating barracuda fishes. Ciguatoxin bioaccumulates in the marine food chain. Thus, carnivorous species are regarded as higher risk species due to biomagnification. Once humans eat fishes, this leads to Ciguatera fish poisoning. Ingestion of reef fishes contaminated with ciguatoxin produces various gastrointestinal symptoms such as vomiting, diarrhea, nausea, and abdominal pain. Neurological symptoms like tingling of the lips, hands, and feet, and reversal of hot and cold sensations and cardiac symptoms. Why is it important to study Ciguatera? This type of poisoning is often underreported and misdiagnosed since there are no visible indicators in the contaminated fishes. Additionally, the toxin is heat stable, thus cooking the contaminated fish will not eliminate the toxin. Hence, the unpredictability of this type of food poisoning poses risk to the fish trade industry and public health. So for today, I'm going to present the result of our study on the detection and seasonality of ciguatoxin in commercially important reef fishes. Second, the occurrence, spatial distribution, and seasonality of toxic benthic dinoflagellates in the targeted areas. And lastly, correlation between the frequency of positive reef fish samples to the abundance of the toxic benthic dinoflagellates between seasons. And finally, provide useful information for the regulation and quarantine of commercially important reef fishes in the country. So for the study area, the samples were collected in the Visayan Sea and Sibuyan Seas, specifically in the coastal waters of Carles in Iloilo, Daangbantayan, Cebu, and Kahijukan in Romblon. The areas were chosen since these are the most productive municipal fishing grounds in the country and where most of the alleged cases of Ciguatera fish poisoning were reported adjacent to these provinces. Monthly collection of commercially important reef fishes from landed catch belonging to the 8 genera such as barracuda, Sperina barracuda, parrotfish, Scarus koi, rabbitfish, Siganus guttatus, grouper, Epinepilus mera, Ploctipemus leopardos, Variola almerginata, snapper, Lucianus campechanus, and emperor fish or Letranus lichian were done twice during the wet season in the months of July to December in 2015 and dry season from April to June 16. Toxin extraction were done according to the method of Oshiro et al. while qualitative mouse bioassay were done using the procedure they use in Japan. Simultaneous with reef fish sampling, toxic benthic dinoflagellates were collected and cell densities were estimated following the procedure described by Tester et al. In 2014. And then the cell densities of Gavier discus, Osteoropsis, and Procentrium species in microalgal samples were determined using microscopy. And for the data analysis, we use the statistical package for the social science, or SPSS version 1, specifically the students' t-test, Mann-Whitney rank sum test, Spiro-Whelp test, binary logistic regression chi-square, and Kruskal-Wallis test. And for the results, table shows the toxicity profile of reef fish samples collected from the 3 sampling sites. Of the total reef fishes collected, 25 fishes out of 561 samples, or 4.46%, tested positive with ciguatoxins. Variola albimarginata ranked first for having the highest toxic proportion among all positive reef fishes collected. This was followed by Epinephelus mera, Lucianus richan, Siganus guttatus, Lucianus campercanus, Carus coyi, and Sperina barracuda. No Plectoramus sample tested positive for ciguatoxin. Overall, the smallest and largest sample observed belong to Siganus guttatus, weighing 150 grams and 870 grams respectively. Fish weight is not a good predictor of fish toxicity at 95% confidence level. This only means that bigger fish does not always test positive. The concept of the food chain theory by Randall in 1958, indicating that larger reef fishes are more toxic than small fishes, is not always true. Restricting the consumption of small individuals only, or to individuals below a given size, does not appear to be an effective strategy in managing Ciguatera fish poisoning. Although the total length of the weight are useful in describing the morphology of the fish, it does not indicate the actual age, past growth, trajectory, and actual physiological condition of the fish. From the data, it can be inferred that larger fish have higher risk of containing ciguatoxins, but it should be noted that smaller fish may be toxic as well. For the fish toxicity by area, especially Carles in Iloilo had the highest number of toxic specimens, followed by Dangbantayan Cebu in the Visayan Sea and Kahidyokan Romblon in Sibuyan Sea. Based on the data from the 3 sampling sites, fish toxin occurrence is site-specific at 95% confidence level. Geographical conditions of the sampling sites affect the frequency of toxic samples. It can be inferred that Carles in Iloilo has a higher proportion of toxic fish samples using multiple comparison of proportion between sampling sites. As observed during sampling, dead corals were present in the sampling sites in Carles, Iloilo. Dr. Yasumoto in 1980 pointed out that the dead coral surfaces covered with filamentous or calcareous macroalgae provides a favorable environment for the proliferation of the causative organism of Ciguatera fish poisoning Gavier discus species. Moreover, Lewis and King in 1996 reported that Gavier discus toxicus favors growth following both natural and human-made disturbances of coral reef. High cell density counts of the toxic organism in a particular area suggest that the area has a higher risk of Ciguatera fish poisoning. A higher number of positive samples was observed during the dry season. According to Lehin and Lewis in 2000, ciguatoxins are found mostly and frequently in selected fish species that thrive in warmer, subtropical, and tropical regions. Nutrient enrichment and warming sea surface temperatures can also stimulate Gavier discus growth and result in higher cell densities. That is according to Parsons et al. 2010. It is evident that the incidence of contamination in reef fish samples from dry season is greater than in the wet season at 99% confidence level. Since Ciguatera fish poisoning increases dramatically with increasing sea surface temperatures, it is expected to see more positive samples in the dry season than in wet season. Three groups of dinoflagellates were observed, such as Gavier discus, the primary causative organism of Ciguatera fish poisoning, Osteoropsis, and Prorycentrum. Most of these host macroalgae collected were predominantly pyophytes, followed by rhodophytes, chlorophytes, coral rubbles, seagrasses, and other macrophytes. In the Bantayan, Cebu, Prorycentrum species thrive most in Homophysia species, while Osteoropsis species thrive most in Galaxaura species. Comparatively, in Carles Iloilo, Prorycentrum species thrive most on Acanthropora species, while Osteoropsis thrive most in Chondrococcus species. Lastly, in Cahijocan Romblon, Prorycentrum species and Osteoropsis species thrive most on Halporine species, respectively. In all areas, Gavier discus species had the lowest cell density counts among all toxic benthic dinoflagellates, but it was observed to have a high density on Actinotrichia species. Similar to the observation by Letaker in 2010, there is no consistent preference for the three toxic dinoflagellates for particular macroalgae. Gavier discus species, Osteoropsis species, and Prorycentrum species thrive in different macroalgae species. The dinoflagellate cell density estimated in this study is relatively lower compared to the findings of Yasumoto in 1980, where 400,000 cells per gram of Gavier discus species were found in Gambier Island. Briggs and Leff in 2007 implied that controlling the macroalgal population in marine areas exposed to continual human disturbance will be critical in maintaining lower base densities of toxic dinoflagellates. Overall, higher cell densities of toxic benthic dinoflagellates were observed during the dry season. Osteoropsis species has the highest average cell density, followed by Prorycentrum and Gavier discus. It was observed that there is a significant difference between season and species of toxic benthic dinoflagellates. A comparison of seasons in all sampling areas, Gavier discus species and Osteoropsis species have significant differences between two seasons in Iloilo and Romblon. On the other hand, all species of toxic benthic dinoflagellates had significant differences in Cebu. Cell densities of caviar discus species were highly significant during dry season in all areas, while Procentrum species was highly significant during wet season in all areas. Lastly, Osteropsis species were found to have a significant difference between seasons. Low cell densities present in the three study areas may be attributed to the high level of anthropogenic disturbance, amongst other factors, as most selected sampling sites were near the shore. Moreover, using the substrate method as an estimation of the abundance of the toxic benthic dinoflagellates in a specific area does not promote standard sampling procedures, thus acquiring variable observations on benthic dinoflagellates. Tester et al. In 2014 demonstrated that the effectiveness of an artificial substrate in observing benthic dinoflagellates is more effective and has numerous advantages over the natural substrate method. So why does caviar discus species dominated by Osteropsis species? Several macroalgal samples contain 0 cells of dinoflagellates. It was noted that a high number of 0 cell counts were observed in caviar discus species during dry season in all areas. This was in contrast to cell density counts of Osteropsis species, wherein it was found that the species dominated the other two toxic benthic dinoflagellates in all areas during the dry season, followed by Procentrum species. Moreover, caviar discus species had the lowest cell density in all areas. This may be due to the allelopathic activity of the dinoflagellate that inhibits the growth of the other two co-occurring species. This agrees well with Skinner in 2013, wherein they hypothesized that the 3 genera of benthic dinoflagellates could be keeping populations of each other in check by allelopathy and species competition. As observed, a higher number of contaminated fishes were collected during the dry season. Similarly, higher cell densities of toxic benthic dinoflagellates were also observed during the dry season. Fish toxicity is directly proportional to the occurrence of benthic dinoflagellates in areas as seen during dry season. Nevertheless, it should be noted that since high cell density of Osteropsis species were observed, the toxicity of the reef fishes can be attributed to other related toxins that have a similar symptom with ciguatoxin. For the conclusion, Ciguatera and Ciguatera-like toxin are present in Visayan and Sibuyan seas. Higher number of contaminated reef fishes were observed in dry season. The toxicity of reef fishes is area specific, while fish size has no direct relationship to fish toxicity. All causative organisms, caviar discus species, Osteropsis species, and Procentrum species are present in the sampling sites. Higher cell densities were observed during dry season. Caviar discus species are the lowest densities of the 3 species. All causative organisms, caviar discus, higher frequency of toxic reef fish samples is correlated to the observed high cell density counts of the benthic dinoflagellates in areas by season. It should be noted that the toxicity of reef fishes may be attributed to other related toxins due to the observed high number of Osteropsis. For management option, we suggest a monitoring and management of CFP on 7 identified reef fish vectors in the areas are necessary to regulate the Ciguatera fish poisoning. This would also support competent authorities like BFAR producers, and traders in assuring consumer protection from the standpoint of health and safety and fair practices in the food trade. Thank you for listening. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Doc Yuli. Maraming salamat po sa lahat ng information. And now we are open for questions. Dr. Santos will help us moderate this session.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sai, and thank you very much, Ma'am Lisa and Doc Yuli. Pwede po ba natin silang palakpakan ulit for those very informative presentations on heavy metals and Ciguatera. All right. Can I maybe request to stop yung sharing so we can have the gallery view? Ayan. And then may I ask si Ma'am Lisa and Doc Yuli to turn on their videos. Ayan, para makita naman kayo ng mga participants. Ayun, there's Doc Yuli and Ma'am Lisa. Sige po, umpisahan na natin yung ating tanungan. By the way, naka-live po tayo sa Facebook at sa YouTube. And so, for those who are there, please, paki-post nyo po yung inyong mga questions and ibabato po sa akin ng secretariat dito para maitanong natin dun sa ating dalawang speakers. Okay, so let's get ready to rumble. First question. Ito para kay, I guess para kay Doc Yuli. Doc Yul, sabi ni Sir Simplicio Vito, what are the toxins that occurs naturally in some types of seafood and are not destroyed by cooking? So I guess this is the Ciguatera is one. And any advice to help reduce risk from toxins in some types of fish or shellfish?
Yeah, no. Can I hear the follow-up question?
Yeah, any advice daw, Doc Yul, to help reduce risk from toxins in some types of fish or shellfish?
So, aside from Ciguatera, PSP, is also one of the toxins that cannot be destroyed by cooking. But at present, we have no direct solutions for this. So what the government is doing is just to have a good monitoring program to ensure that the food item are safely guarded, or it can be monitored,
Okay. Thank you,
Monitoring
Dr.
management is the key word for this kind of toxins.
Doc Yul, follow-up question siguro sa akin kasi nakita ko yung kanina. Sabi, parang ang may indication na if summer or dry season, parang tumataas yung number ng tama ba yun? Ng mga dinoflagellates na nagkukos ng Ciguatera.
Yes, so that's, yeah.
So parang pwede bang indicator yun na medyo mas maging careful tayo during summer? Ganun ba yun?
Pwede po, oo.
Okay.
Pwede gano'n, no? Parang dalasan natin yung monitoring pag season, pag expect natin na dry season.
Ayun. Okay. Thank you very much, Doc Yul. Next question from Henry Rivera. This is a bit interesting. Ang sabi niya dito, the fish, question mark. If people are always hungry, can they get cancer if they always eat fish? I guess siguro yung tanong niya is, pwede ba tayong, may nakukuha bang something from fish na nagkukos ng cancer, something like that?
Siguro yung mga contaminants caused by pollution, yun yung mga nagkukos ng cancer.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yung mga...
Like yung di ba? Lead, for example, and mercury.
Heavy metals, cadmium. Yan mga nagkukos ng cancer yan.
Tama ba yun, Ma'am Lisa?
Akan na ba kay Lisa?
No, go ahead, Doc Yul. Go ahead.
Okay, so yan, yun yung mga nagkukos ng cancer, yung mga heavy metals, no? Actually, we can compute for the risk, no? We can kung ilang tao yung magkaka-cancer given na ito yung level ng mga heavy metals.
Wow. Ma'am Lisa, want to say
Yes.
something about that? Oo.
Oo. Follow up kay Doc Yuli, meron po tayong ongoing risk assessment study na mako-compute po natin kung ilan dapat if there is a contamination of heavy metals, kung ilan ang dapat kakainin ng tao para hindi siya mag-cause ng makapag-ano ng cancer. So, yun yung risk assessment na ginagawa natin today.
Grabe, ano? So talagang seafood safety matters, ano? Kailangan alam natin yung kinakain natin. Otherwise, ang dami palang pwedeng mangyari. Hindi lang sakit ng tiyan, pwede pa rin palang cancer. Okay. From kay Billy Subang Jr., ang sabi niya, considering the harmful effect of Ciguatera to humans and the presence of the Dinoflagellates in some fishes commonly consumed by people, what is the policy recommendation to prevent poisoning? I guess it's related dun sa first question, Doc Yul. Maybe you want to reiterate that.
Yeah, so just siguro we can institutionalize the monitoring program for Ciguatera fish poisoning. Like the PSP, meron tayong talagang monitoring program. Siguro it's time to also do that for Ciguatera. Considering na Ciguatera yung pangalawa nating problema sa biotoxins next to PSP.
Oh, so parang Doc Yul, hindi lang pala yung red tide ang minomonitor talaga ng masinsin, kung hindi Ciguatera din. Parang gano'n. Ano,
Ciguatera din, oo.
Oo. Sige. From Jasper King Tangal, kay Ma'am Lisa. Ma'am Lisa, this is for you. Sabi niya, affected po ba ang GSI, yung Gonadosomatic Index, fecundity rate, and condition factor ng mga isda na may heavy metals? Although I guess hindi nyo naman to tinignan directly dun sa study nyo, but what do you think?
Hindi ko masyado na ano. Doc, paki-ulit. Sorry.
Ang tanong niya, Ma'am Lisa, may epekto daw ba yung heavy metals sa GSI, yung Gonadosomatic Index, yung gonads?
Yung mga buntis yan, mga buntis.
Oo, kung yung gonads niya ba, yung fecundity rate, yung kanyang dami ng panganganak, tsaka yung condition factor, may naapektuhan ba yon pag meron siyang mga heavy metals sa katawan? Isda? Yun ang tanong niya.
Ang ano kasi, ang heavy metals, like for example, kung ang isda ay nakatira doon sa environment yun, a-accumulate yun ng na-accumulate. Ngayon, kung parati siyang nahandon, magkakaroon yung buntis na yun ng maaapektuhan siya.
So may effect pa rin, ano?
May effect.
Although, parang may standard din. Pag lumampas na siya doon sa standard, medyo detrimental na parang gano'n. Oh. Sige. From Ma'am Lourdes, Maria Lourdes Lacuna, question to Ma'am Cambia. One of your results showed a positive correlation between size and mercury and cadmium. Are there any move or actions from the LGUs or any government organizations regarding this alarming result? As we all know, people from Luzon are using these seafoods and food sources.
Ang sagot ko dyan yung risk assessment na ginagawa natin ngayon kasi we just based on the standard, on the foreign standard natin, hindi natin ma-sure kung talagang yung nakain natin yon ay may risk sa atin. Kasi ang accumulation ng heavy metals sa body is depend on how many concentration na po sa katawan ng isang tao. Kung ito ay cancerous ba or tawag dito, makakapag-produce ng
masamang epekto.
Oo, masamang epekto sa katawan.
Doc Yuli, you want to say something?
Yeah, this is just an additional information. I saw a proposal from NEDA and BFAR. I saw the draft and now in the process of finalization. They have a project for implementation, I think, next year on how to address this issue. Actually, they cited our study. So maybe next year, no? The team from UP Los Baños will implement this kind of project.
So parang ang sa question dito, Doc Yul, parang sinasabi for areas na medyo contaminated, yung isda doon mukhang pag malalaki ang size, mukhang mas madami yung mas positive
parang
sa heavy metal.
May sila na para i-close band din yung ganong area, ay magbaband din sila ng ganon.
No, oo nga. Ako talaga naman. Ang daming issues.
Parang ganon.
Oo nga. Sige, tsaka mukhang bumabalik pa rin dun sa importansya ng monitoring, na kailangan nakabantay kasi nga kinakain po ito ng mga tao and na yung safety na napuput into jeopardy. Okay, from Jerome Sabilo, ito from FB Live na ito. For the first presentation, are the methods used applicable in other areas like Pangil Bay? And what are the risks posed by heavy metals concentration on aquaculture commodities? I guess yung second question nasagot na kanina ni Ma'am Lisa. Yung first question na lang, Doc Yul. Yung methods daw ba na ginawa, sorry, kay Ma'am Lisa din pala to.
Kay Lisa.
Are applicable in other areas like Pangil Bay? Parang kung gusto nilang gawin daw doon, Ma'am Lisa, pwede din daw.
Gawin sa Lala.
Okay, sige, pwede naman. Yung risk assessment study.
No, I mean, Ma'am Lisa, yung study mo, can it be replicated sa Pangil Bay?
Yung analysis, yes, it can be.
Pwede.
Yes, pwede.
Okay. From Al-Baris Tahiludin, ito from, I think he's from Turkey. Were there any reports of human poisoning caused by Ciguatera toxins in the sampling sites during the study? So yun yung tanong niya, Doc Julie. During your study, nagkaroon ba ng was there human poisoning?
No, we cannot pinpoint, but we collected the samples 2015 and there was a report in 2014. So very near it's 2014 in Zamboanga City, but we collected our samples in 2015. One year ago.
But 1 year ago. But during that time, wala.
No.
Doc Yuli, is it possible that this is happening, but I mean, it's again, you said misdiagnosed, but it's more prevalent as we know. Ibig sabihin, ibang areas meron din Ciguatera poisoning, pero hindi lang nare-report. Malamang hindi gaanong severe yung iba.
Hindi nare-report.
Okay. From Marilyn Amlani, Miss Cambia, with the results obtained, especially in one area in your study which showed higher heavy metals content, can we still consider that these sites are still safe for culturing fish? And are there any water? Wait lang po. Are there any water quality studies on these sites? Thank you po.
Okay, yung paper po natin na pinresent kanina are study based on the landing sites. So we cannot conclude na yung place na yon is safe kasi hindi natin sure kung saan talaga nanggaling yung isda na yon. And then may follow-up study po na ginagawa ngayon na mismo on the site mismo, like yung sa aquaculture farm, doon talaga nagko-conduct ng analysis. And also we collect water sample to determine the heavy metals. So site specific and na po yung ginagawa natin.
All right.
Ito po yung ongoing study.
Okay, and we will wait for those results, Ma'am Lisa. Mukhang napaka-importante din ng mga kasunod na study. Okay, another one from Jerome Sabilio from the FB Live. Is it also possible to detect pesticide residue aside from heavy metals? I think yes, right? May mga procedures for that.
Yes, meron na po.
Although we do pesticide residue? Do we do pesticide residue sa lab natin? Wala.
May future plans po. Yeah,
may future plans.
Yes.
Okay. Sige.
From the additional
ang dami yung tatrabahuin, Doc Yuli. Okay.
May equipment na walang tao sa budget.
Ganun ba? Oo.
Oo.
Okay. Sana may nakikinig na mga donors dito, no? Ng mga DOST or NEDA, baka mabigyan tayo ng budget. Okay. Maria Joanna Perdigon, sabi niya, how about po the remains of the balloons which are always falling in our oceans? I guess siguro parang nade-detect ba yun? Yan, sa mga isda, yung mga balloon residues, siguro yung rubber, yung plastic, siguro ganun yung sabihin.
Ikaw si Lisa sasagot. Actually, pag mga groundwater, ang problem dyan is arsenic. Pero wala pa tayong arsenic, Lisa, no?
Wala pa.
Oo.
That will be the next target na
Kasi
arsenic.
yan ang problema sa mga sa yung rice contaminants kasi nakagaling sa mga groundwater yung arsenic kaya napupunta sa rice.
Oo. Yung mga balloons daw ba, Doc Yuli? Ano bang mga contaminant na galing sa balloon?
Yun nga, isa nga din siguro yung arsenic. Oo,
okay.
kasi groundwater siya Groundwater.
Hindi, Doc Yul, balloon, hindi balon. Balloon. Lobo.
Ay, ano?
Lobo.
Lobo. Akala ko balloons. Balloon.
Rubber yun, di ba?
Rubber,
Oo.
Rubber. Yung coloring yata yung LED, di ba? Yung mga
okay.
Coloring, yung kayo mga laruan ng mga bata, sinasabi lang contaminated ng LED.
I see. So posible yun. Okay. Although we don't actually test.
Akala ko nga balloon. Akala ko balloon eh.
Balloon. Okay.
Sabi ko arsenic
from Jeza Maureen Coyoca. Good afternoon. I'm from Daang Bantayan, Cebu. Ayan na. And I was really surprised knowing that our town was included in the study as place with seafoods of highest toxicity. Thank you so much for the info. We are heavy seafood eaters here and God is good. We are all doing well here. My question is, since we haven't known so far consumers from our town and our neighboring towns who are suffering from food poisoning due to the toxins discussed, would it be possible that we have developed immunity against these toxins? What will be the effect in the long run? Interesting question.
Hindi ko pa alam kung siguro.
Well, siguro immunity in the sense na parang kahit nakakain nila hindi sila nagsusuka, wala silang
yun, mga naka-develop na rin siguro ng counting
something like that.
Oo.
Or baka meron pero baka na-attribute sa yun nga misdiagnose.
Misdiagnose. Ano kasi siya parang non-lethal, hindi naman siya nakakamatay.
Okay. Kaya siguro. Anyway, kay Ma'am monitor na lang kila Ma'am Jessa, and perhaps they can develop some expertise there to monitor their areas patungkol sa Ciguatera. Kasi may mga experiences po kayo diyan. From Sir Vito, Simplicio Vito, any idea on the man-made contaminants? How harmful are those? Medyo malawak. Man-made contaminants, marami yata Doc Yuli?
Man-made contaminants is heavy metals. Meron pa sila sinasabi ngayon ng mga plastics.
Maintindihan.
Ano pa? Lisa, ano pa yung mga man-made contaminants mo?
At least yung minomonitor nyo, ma'am. Yung minomonitor nyo.
Ayun.
Basta ngayon yun heavy metals.
Ayun. Okay. Man-made, that means mga from the factories, no? You think? Parang ganun. Okay. Kay Aldrin Arguelles, what are the mitigation strategies of the government, LGUs, that we are currently doing to eliminate dinoflagellate algal bloom and the Ciguatera toxin in the aquatic environment? Can we consider the use of microbes as biological control of this algal bloom and toxin? Yeah. Doc Yul?
Siguro pwede, kaso mahabang research pa yan. No? So siguro, yun nga, iwasan natin yung destruction ng coral reef. Kasi once na naging dead corals, doon kumakapit yung stay healthy, no? Yung mga coral reef natin.
Ayun. So, connected na naman pala doon, no? Daming pwedeng idulot na masama ng mga...
Kasi halos coral rubbles na yung mga pinagkuhanan namin.
Oo. So, hindi lang pala yung loss nung let's say, mga reef fishes dahil nasira yung coral reef, but
Mm.
nagdudulot din ng mga paglabas ng mga sakit like Ciguatera.
Yeah, epekto ng ano yan, ng pagdami ng Ciguatera, yung reef destruction.
Oh, parang indicator siya, no?
Indicator.
Interesting. Okay, Jasper Kit Tangal ulit. Heavy metals rin siguro reason Manila Bay fish kill or dolomite. Oo, may fish kill daw na nangyari recently sa Manila Bay. Although nakita ko yung post ni Dr. Ben Vallejo na nag-aaral sa Manila Bay. It's more on the anoxic conditions ata nung water. Kasi seasonal yun eh. May nangyayaring nawawala yung oxygen dyan kaya nasosuffocate yung mga isda. Okay, Billy Subang Jr. ulit. As reported, there are traces of mercury in Honda Bay, Puerto Princesa City, Palawan. Is this area included in your risk assessment? If not, what are your suggestions to monitor the area? Who are responsible agencies to do such activity? Okay, I guess, Ma'am Lisa, sa'yo to. Meron daw na-report sa Honda Bay. I think nadyadyaryo ito. Included daw ba ito sa risk assessment study ninyo? And kung hindi, ano bang pwede nating ma-recommend daw? At sinong responsible agency?
Well, yung sa amin po, ang risk assessment, dito lang po sa Manila Bay kami nag-start. And then, meron tayong ginawa na risk assessment initially doon sa Daan Bantayan at saka dito sa may Iloilo. Pero yung sa Palawan, as of now, wala po tayo. And maybe ang responsible po sa risk assessment, it is a joint effort po yan eh. From the BIPAR also and from the Department of Health. Kasi when it comes to kung ang risk ng isang ay ang magdi-declare po niyan is the Department of Health. So ang nagiging role natin ay tayo po yung mag-a-analyze and then we interview, we make an interview and then we make the computation for the risk assessment and then we mag-aano po tayo sa the Department of Health at sila ang ating magiging katulong.
And LGUs, tingin mo Ma'am Lisa, can
Ang
also sort of
LGU,
mag-initiate tapos
maybe
parang ganun.
sa LGU.
Sa LGUs.
Walang capability.
Ayun
Walang
nga lang,
capability.
Kasi
I mean LGU yung mag-initiate tapos in partnership with your laboratory parang.
yes.
Yeah, pwede.
Pwede. Sige. Ganda, maganda.
They can,
Oo.
Pero ang risk assessment study takes time. Medyo mahabang study po yan.
Sige. From Jancy Kuo. Ayan. Galing naman to sa FB Live naman. No? Sabi niya, palagay ko nakatira ito sa isang lugar na malapit sa mining. Kasi kung malapit po ba sa mining ang isang area, automatically high risk din po ba sa Ciguatera fish poisoning ang nasabing kalapit na lugar? Salamat po and more power. Ano, Doc, yun?
Wala pa akong nababasa na gano'n.
Direct.
Pag-distract, siguro heavy metals related sa mining.
Oo. Pero kung yung mining, nasira niya yung corals, at then later on, tinubuan na ng mga Ciguatera, posible, ano?
Oo.
So,
parang
kailangan talaga
invasive species. Yan yung
Okay,
parang nagkakaroon ng succession eh. From dead corals, tutubo yung mga
Oo nga. Okay. From Abrina Dan, how long does it take for fish to remove the toxic heavy metals from its body? Alam ko yata, hindi natatanggal ito, di ba?
Oo.
Ma'am Lisa.
Sige.
Go ahead, Ma'am Lisa.
Oo, kasi po yung these heavy metals are non-biodegradable. Ibig sabihin, dagdag siya ng dagdag sa katawan natin. Hindi siya, kasi may half-life ang isang metal. Like for example, nag-i-stay siya ng 20 years to 30 years bago siya ma-degrade. So, kapag ang isang isda ay parati siyang naka-live doon sa environment na mataas ang heavy metal content, definitely magkakaroon siya ng mataas na level.
Nag-accumulate na lang na nag-accumulate.
Mm-mm.
Ganon din ba sa tao, Ma'am Lisa? Parang
Yes,
ganon din, di
oo.
ba? Oo.
Ganun din sa
Kaya
tao.
ano tayo, ingat, no?
Mm-mm.
Kasi mag-accumulate na mag-accumulate. Okay. From Jasper Kitangal ulit, is there any post-harvest techniques to avoid or mitigate Ciguatera poisoning? Docule. Post-harvest technique daw para medyo mabawas-bawasan yung risk ng Ciguatera. Nasaan nga ba nakikita ito? Sa flesh ba?
Actually, sa flesh lang yan, no? Pag inanalyze mo yung bituka or intestine, mas mataas doon.
Okay.
So sinatapon na lang natin yon. Ang kinuha talaga namin yung flesh lang, yung samples, sinample namin is flesh. So yung post-harvest is yun, early detection, no? If the fish is contaminated, then yun.
Kailangan mag-develop ng rapid testing parang sa COVID. Oo.
Meron po ang BIFAR, yung RBA, Receptor Binding Assay. So pwedeng
okay.
ma-test yung sample. Mas mabilis yun kaysa mouse bioassay.
Parang rapid test yun. Ganun,
Rapid,
pag nag-positive, medyo...
Receptor Binding Assay. Mas shorten yung period para ma-detect natin.
Ano ba yun, Doc Yul? Naka-kit na ba yun or kailangan may laboratory pa rin?
May laboratory pa rin.
Ganun, oo. Hindi ba siya pwedeng parang pregnancy test?
Radio-labeled yun eh. So you will handle
Oo.
radioactive materials pero mababa lang naman.
Oo. So wala pang naka-develop pa nung parang pregnancy test na ganun
parang
kabilis.
COVID test, wala pa.
Oo, wala pa na ilagyan mo lang ng madidetect, wala pa.
Wala
o
pa
sa mga natin dito, sa mga viewers, sa mga students, masters, PhD, that would be a very good
test kit for Ciguatera.
Developing ng test kit na for Ciguatera, yung rapid test kit para magagamit ng maraming tao.
Meron dati yung Hawaii, Ciguatcheck ang tawag, pero wala rin, hindi tumagal eh.
Talaga?
Parang naubusan sila nung purified Ciguatera or mga gano'n.
Okay. From Raymond Mariano Menanio Pascual, Pascua, what will be the symptoms and first aid to a human who eats aquatic animals having toxic heavy metals, mercury? Since according to some researches, it is very harmful to humans, specifically to our nervous system, brain. Thank you po and stay safe. So meron daw po bang ano daw yung symptoms and then ano yung first aid? Siguro kung masyado nang marami yung kanyang heavy metals, Ma'am Lisa.
Ang heavy metal sa brain ang ano kasi niyan yung are you familiar yung sa Minamata disease? So yung ang natin ang naaapektuhan yung nervous system natin. So ang pinaka po niyan alam ko kinikilate may mga chelating po yan. Pero naano po niyo yung sa amalgam, di ba pinagbawal yun sa dental kasi very dangerous and even the dentist now kapag ikaw ay meron na hindi po advisable na tanggalin yun. Kasi yung effect ng mercury mismo din po sa tao. So,
I see. So pag lumabas na yung symptoms niya, Ma'am Lisa, parang it's too late na, ganun ba 'yon? Or may mga hindi naman tayo doktor pero
hindi mo agad makikita ang sintomas kaagad-agad kasi unti-unti
nag-accumulate. And by the time na ma-detect na, medyo pag lumabas na yung symptoms, medyo medyo lumampas-lampas ka na sa quota. Parang ganun. Okay. What else?
Wait, may
sige.
Lang dito, may additional akong sagot doon kanina, yung kung nakaka-develop tayo ng immunity.
Oo.
Since wala siyang glycoprotein, so parang malabo siya maka-develop ng immunity.
Hindi siya kagaya ng parang immunity sa virus, di siguro immunity ang term, baka tolerance siguro, Doc, which is a little bit different. Okay. Any other questions po? Meron pa po tayong oras para magkuha ng questions. And siguro while waiting for that, ano po, no? Don't forget to like NFRDI Philippines official Facebook page. And of course, meron ding Facebook page ang the Philippine Journal of Fisheries. So paki-like and follow po. So any other questions? Mukhang maganda yung mga discussion. Siguro, tanong ko na lang muna, kung wala nang question, tanong ko na lang si Doc Yuli at si Ma'am Lisa kung meron silang something na mga other things na gustong sabihin or mga plano po ninyo in the near future with your projects and activities. Ma'am Lisa?
Ikaw, Lisa.
Yes. Sa ngayon po, ang aming ginagawa ngayon ay yung sa methyl mercury kasi ito po ay isa sa mga kailangan ng codex na by the year 2022, we have dapat tayong data na mai-submit sa codex with regards to methyl mercury. Methyl mercury ay yung organic mercury that nakikita din yan sa mga aquatic animals. So, yun ang aming. And then also, we are conducting yung risk assessment dito sa Manila Bay. So, and other future activities po na naka-line up sa amin, yung detection din ng mga dioxins. And then the antibiotics. So, yan po.
Ayun. And Doc Yuli, although bago ka sumagot doon sa future plans, good afternoon po, may pahabol. I just would like to ask whether there is an effect on the taste of the fish if it contains ciguatoxin.
Wala.
May iba ba yung lasa? Wala?
Wala.
Okay. So Doc Yul, ano ba yung mga naka-pipeline mo dyan or mga activities mo?
No, related sa Ciguatera, since ang gamit namin ngayon is mouse bioassay, we will check the levels of Ciguatera this time using the Ciguatera, this time using yung LC-MS-MS. So nakabili tayo ng ganong equipment. So pwede nating ma-validate yung result natin. That is the how do you call this chemical analysis at talagang specific yung method na gagamitin natin. So hopefully next year ba, Lisa, or kailangan umpisa yung Ciguatera natin?
Kasi medyo mahirap yung ciguatoxin na standard, pero may nakitaan na tayo na magsusupply sa atin. So, marami talagang trabaho.
Oo. Ito rin kasi yung in-workout ngayon ng WHO saka FAO na magkaroon tayo ng standard. Kasi wala tayong talagang totoong standard ng Ciguatera eh. Although yung US FDA nagbigay sila ng value, napakababa. No? So, pero wala para talagang iba yung pag-aaral doon. So, we are on the process of collecting data. No? So, dapat makaparticipate tayo doon para magkaroon tayo ng representation pagdating sa pag-establish ng MRL or minimum limits, no, for Ciguatera para maprotektahan din natin yung ating mga isda.
Okay, sige. Napakaganda, no po. We can say na maraming ng activities, maraming research and development activities ang NFRDI patungkol sa seafood safety, no, concerns. Pero mukhang mas marami pa yung issues, ano, Doc Yuli?
Marami.
Mas marami. So, siguro I'll take this opportunity na lang gaya nung nababanggit ng ating executive director si Ma'am Lilian na NFRDI of course is here and is open to collaboration, no, sa mga interested na mag-pitch in, collaborate yung inyong talent, collaborate resources and stuff like that. Welcome po, open po. Just write us, mag-message lang kayo sa aming mga Facebook pages nandito po kami. So I guess with that, kung wala na pong ibang question, nakakakita na ako dito ng mga thank you NFRDI, from Ma'am kay Ashton, sabi niya, thank you very much for the comprehensive webinar. Yes, it's very informative daw, sabi nila. And ayan, naparami yata ako ng tanong. No, Jasper, just keep it coming, keep it coming. Mas gusto namin yan kasi ito nga yung paraan namin para mas ma-impart pa natin sa public, sa community, yung mga naaaral ng NFRDI so that magkaroon pa tayong maraming information na magagamit natin sa pang-araw-araw nating pamumuhay. And by the way, hindi lang po also siguro sa mga taga-NFRDI, marami po naka-line up ng mga NFRDI speakers, but we might be also featuring other researchers na outside NFRDI na nag-publish sa the Philippine Journal of Fisheries. So with that, maraming salamat po. Over to you, Sai. Go ahead. At palakpakan natin si Doc Yuli tsaka si Ma'am Lisa.
Ayan. Thank you po, Doc Muji.
Ay, ma'am, si ma'am daw, merong sasabihin.
Yes, Ma'am Lilian.
Ma'am? Hindi siguro. Ma'am Lilian?
Wala
Hindi siguro baka na ano lang napindot. Go ahead, Sai.
Okay. So thank you po ulit, Doc Muji, as well as to our...
Ayan. Ma'am.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, ma'am.
Nawawala si ma'am.
Hintayin po natin, baka makabalik ulit si ma'am.
Ayun o.
Hello.
Ayan, ma'am. Go ahead po.
Ayan.
Ma'am, wala po kayong mukha.
Saka ma'am, baka nawawala yung signal.
Doon sa mga na-inspired na participants natin, can I request na ano kayo ng hello?
Go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead po. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Rinig po, ma'am.
Nawala na.
Oo. Baka pwedeng meron lang akong special request doon sa ating mga participants. Magpaalo naman tayo ng mga heart, emoticons, tuwa, palakpak doon sa ating comment. Oo.
Ayan, sa comment page.
To make a special request sa ating mga participants.
Ayan, nakikita ko na po may mga clap and hearts.
Ayan.
Ako rin po maglalagay.
Ako clap.
Ayan.
Tsaka yung mga naka-Facebook Live, tsaka YouTube Live, YouTube Live. Paki-heart po and like.
Ayan,
lang kayo ng
thank you
mga
po.
sa ating comment portion, mag-comment doon, tapos magpawala ng mga hearts, emoticons, palakpak, etc. doon sa ating FB. Para mas medyo exciting and inspiring yung ating Yun, may nakikita akong mga palakpakan na doon. So, yun siguro. Simple lang. Bilang pagtatapos. And thank you. I hope lahat
millennial ka talaga, ma'am. Ma'am, millennial ka.
Oo nga, ma'am.
Millennial si ma'am. Mas millennial pa kaysa sa amin.
Okay, thank you po ulit.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
To our speakers and of course to AED, our Executive Director. Ayan, and remind ko lang po ulit na please fill out our evaluation form. Yung link po natin ay nandun na sa chat box. And for those who would like to receive a certificate of participation, just reply to our invitation email with your full name and affiliation. And before we go, I request po na i-open natin yung ating mga videos and mag-take po tayo ng group photo. Okay po ba yun?
Group photo.
Ayan, group photo. MC, ikaw na lang mag-take. Open po natin yung video.
Ayan, nagkaroon na ng mga muka. Yung mga ayaw magpakita ng muka. I-like nyo rin si Doc Moji pala, ha? Si Doc Moji.
Bye-bye. See you.
Bye-bye, ma'am.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye, ma'am. Sa susunod to.
Hi, marami pa tayo.
Yes,
Please
ma'am.
like and share. Sa susunod, siguro iba mag-watch party. Kayo ng watch party. Para mas marami tayo.
Si ma'am millennial na millennial.
Pwede yan. See? Saya? Thank you.
Bye, ma'am. Bye.
Happy weekend and happy conservation. Bye-bye. Congrats to everybody.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you po.
Ayan, MC.
Picture.
Can you hear us?
Everyone.
Bilang ka MC, ha?
Picture.
Okay po, 1, 2, 3. And for next batch po.
Uy,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. Huwag niyong kalimutan si Doc Muji, NFRDI Philippines, TPJF, tsaka si Doc Muji.
Smile lang po kayo kasi iba't ibang batch po. Steady po muna tayo.
Ayan.
Smile.
Ayan, ang dami nila. Oh. Kakatuwa.
Ilan nang nag-attend?
Ma'am, umabot po tayo ng halos 100 dito sa Zoom.
Yes po, ma'am.
100 sa Zoom.
Let's aim
Tapos
for
sa
the thousands.
FB, ma'am.
Mag-aim tayo ng 1,000. Di ba?
Yes, ma'am. I-check po natin po mamaya, ma'am, yung sa FB Live. Kahapon, ma'am, yung FishCon, yung FB daw nasa around 800 sa FB.
Wow! Yan. Kaya maganda yung naka-FB eh. Tapos, invite
Yes, ma'am.
natin sila mag-watch party sila. Pwede naman ng watch party. So, matutuwa sila doon. Thank you.
So,
Yes,
guys,
ma'am.
thank you very much. Please watch out. Marami pang mga pakulo ang NFRDI. Si Ma'am Glay. Hi, Ma'am Glay. Maraming pakulo pa ang NFRDI. Abang-abang
Special
lang kayo. No?
mention kay Ma'am Guy.
Hello.
Hello.
So,
Hi.
Bye-bye na.
bye-bye. So, abang-abang lang. Tell your friends about the activities po ng NFRDI. Share, follow, like. Para maging isang malaking community tayo sa fisheries. Ate. Ayan. Sige, thank you very much everyone. Doc Yuli, Ma'am Lisa. Well done, well done. Aabangan namin ang inyong mga exciting results na susunod.
Napagod na ako.
Huwag ka mapagod. By the way, sirs, ma'am, you can download all the articles for free, no? Sa the
Yes,
Philippine
nasa
Journal of
website po
Fisheries,
na.
nasa website 'yon. Marami pong mga documents doon and papers and books that you can download for free. So, tangkilikin po natin 'yon, and if you do have master's thesis or PhD thesis, welcome po kayo mag-submit doon. Mababait po yung ating mga editorial board members kasi advice po namin sa kanila doon, huwag masyadong masungit. Up to standard, pero maganda pagkakasabi pag na-reject. Parang gano'n. Hindi kayo ma-hurt. Reject pa rin, pero hindi kayo ma-hurt. Ibig sabihin, as long as we can really, kaya pang iayusin, yun po yung aim natin. Kasi nga, we want more Filipinos to publish and more Filipinos to write. Okay? So, ayan. Sige, maraming salamat po, and we'll see you again in our future activities. Ayun, si Sir Simplicio Vito, kahapon siya, dami ring tanong. Sir, thank you very much. Sa susunod, ganun po ulit, ha? Very, very nice. Okay, sige. Thank you.
Thank you po for attending and
Bye-bye.
celebrating the FishCon with us.
Thank you.
Have a nice day, everyone. Stay safe po.
Stay safe. Oo, kailangan pa kayo ng Pilipinas, no, para mag-research. Ma'am Glay, sana yung mga papadala mong mga papel dyan. Si Ma'am Glay, pinuput on the spot ko. Asan na yung papel mo, Ma'am Glay? Wala.
No.
Ano?
Wala, hindi pa.